Guys and dolls, Self-Love September is here. I have declared this month Self-Love September. This is a video for Self-Love September. Hi Pop-Tarts, happy Self-Love September. Some people will find themselves in a situation sometimes in life where they tell themselves there's no point in even starting a project or pursuing a dream because this person has already done it better. This person's material is already out there. This person is just so amazing in all these various ways. And it stops an individual from really pursuing their dreams and recognizing what they can achieve and learning what their potential really is. Even when we struggle with empowerment in adulthood, even when we do feel like we don't have a choice or like we're under somebody's spell or like something is happening to us that we feel we can't stop, we have a wider awareness of the fact that there is choice, and we have a wider awareness of the fact that we are in control of our lives.
Oh, I chose self-love when I put a slice of lemon in this drink, I'll tell thee.
Whenever people think that they have drawn a bunch of cards for a specific thing, in this case self-love, but it could be anything, and then they're looking at a bunch of cards that are completely irrelevant, that aren't giving the right messages, that aren't really speaking to the theme, I always think to myself that is an area where learning can really be strengthened with tarot, because actually, to me, there is no such thing as a spread full of irrelevant cards. There is no such thing as a spread that is not speaking exactly to the theme or question that you have put to the deck. This has been one of my self-love stories, and until next time, very, very much love and blessed be. And until next year, guys, this has been Self-Love September. Mwah. Hi chickens, welcome to my channel. Thank you for coming and sitting with me for a bit. I'm going for the 6-year-old princess vibe today. Apparently that was what I fancied, so I just ran with it. Okay, so September on my channel. September on my channel is very connected to self-love, and it has been every single year since 2014. And actually in my life, in my personal life, it's very connected to self-love. In my creative life, in my spiritual life, I try to dedicate September to self-love entirely. And it's been really helpful for me. Obviously for me, you know, self-love is such a massive theme in my work, and I'm really passionate about it. I talk about it a lot. There are a lot of resources at this point on the internet, written by me or filmed by me or whatever, that have a lot to do with self-love. And I talk about it with my clients pretty much all day, every day. So it is definitely a big theme. But September is where I do my big check-in. So I think about everything that's happened for the previous 12 months. What was self-loving? What was unself-loving? What do I want to get better with? What do I want to change? What have I learned? What have been the major self-love lessons and takeaways? And then not only do I do a lot of journaling around that, and I do ritual around that, and I talk with my therapist about that and my friends about that, but I also try and put some of it into video format. Every single September I've put out self-love resources, and you know, it's that time to put out self-love resources again. However, I feel very different this year to how I've felt any other year, darlings. And I think basically it's true to say that every single year when I've done my September check-in, I'm different to who I was the year before, because I've been through things and I've learned things, I've experienced things, I've been feeling things, and, you know, I've gone through stuff. And so basically I come to this point every year, you know, from a different perspective. But this year it's particularly weird because I just don't really want to talk. And I kind of have to, because that's the challenge I set for myself every year. I set myself the challenge to come here and put some thoughts together for you and make resources that we can go through collectively and talk about as a group. And in the past, I've not only done videos on YouTube, but I've also done, you know, private sessions and private groups and workshops, and there's different things that happen every year around it. So for the first time, a September has come along where I don't want to talk, and I'm actually not that great at talking recently. I can get it together for my clients. You know, my client calls go well, and my conversations personally go reasonably well, but I'm not as articulate as I usually am when it comes to putting together video resources, and I'm actually reaching out a lot less for conversation in my personal life than I normally would be. I'm just feeling very reflective. You know, when you have those times in your life where you're very reflective and you're just in a mood to listen and to receive and to learn and to just be caught in the quiet and the stillness of what is happening to you and what you're going through. And somehow in that quietness, the tapestry of your understanding comes together from all these lessons that you've been learning and these experiences you've had. That's where I am, and that's what I'm feeling. That's kind of what I'm going through right now. But I still do want to embark on Self-Love September. I still want to talk with you about things, and I want to read your comments, and I want to put some stuff together. So I'm going to be approaching it a little bit differently. For instance, there's no intro. Usually I have a specific Self-Love September intro that I use for every year, and it's different each time. I know that you will have seen the reel that I played before this video, where it was just sort of like a collection of different bits and pieces from various Self-Love Septembers. And that was me kind of celebrating the massive challenge that I've set for myself every year since 2014. So for a long time now. But that's not the intro. Actually, I'm just not really that into intros in general at the moment. So I'm going to have maybe a different thing every time. So there's no intro. I haven't pre-planned any videos or pre-filmed any videos. There's definitely a few bits and pieces I know I'm going to be doing this month just because it's what my heart is calling me to. But essentially, I think I'm just going to be putting together some personal resources about various things I've been through in the last 12 months and talking a little bit about things I've learned. And I know that's basically the meat and potatoes of my channel anyway. And I definitely have gone through some very personal territory with previous Septembers when I've gone into my self-love lessons and my challenges, the things I've found really difficult. And I'm going to be doing the same. So in that sense, it's not going to be any different. But maybe I'll seem a bit different in some of the videos. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see how we get on. Every September that I've done the self-love reflections, I've definitely tried to challenge myself to put out more content and more thoughtful content and more purposeful content. And I've pre-planned and pre-filmed content. And so it's quite relaxing and refreshing to be on the 7th of the month as I am filming this now and not have anything really, already done. Part of the reason for that as well is not just that I'm feeling very reflective and very internal and very kind of just quiet, but also because I'm working on my second book, darlings. I'm working on my second book, and I have a delivery date upcoming in October for the first part of the book. So I'm beavering away on that. So it wouldn't make sense to sit around and try and make an exorbitant amount of videos. And also, that's not the challenge that I want to set myself this year. I think the challenge I want to set myself, rather than thinking about like this really meaningful, purposeful, high-powered, high-value video content and putting out a lot of it and giving, really giving and over-delivering, I guess, that has been a challenge for me in previous years that I've really wanted, and I feel like I've risen to that challenge. This year, I think the challenge is just going to be more about showing up and being very open and honest with you guys. And I'm going to be transparent, and I'm going to go for depth and honesty rather than quantity and I was going to say quality, but hopefully it will be of quality. Like, I want you to take things that you can resonate with and go away with them and, plant them in your own lives as and how you see fit and tweak as needed, But yeah, I'm going to be doing a much more of a slow burn kind of thing, I think. I'm quite an ambitious person. I'm quite driven. I like a project. I like to throw myself into a project 100%. And I love to see the fruits of my labor and celebrate the fruits of my labor. I get a real kick out of that, that is definitely the stuff of life for me. So yeah, I love that feeling. I wouldn't be able to tell you for how long now it's been that I've felt this quietness and this introspection and this need to just go inward and not speak as much and not produce as much. I don't think it's going to last because it's not really something that clicks with my character massively. I like to externalize whatever is internal, and I like to put things out in the world and make things and have conversations around things. So I wouldn't be able to tell you for how long I've been going into this quiet period, but it has really challenged me in a way that has been directly connected to self-love, in the sense that I've just had to be going a lot easier on myself recently. I've had to really just be comfortable with relaxing and not berating myself for that or worrying about that or being obsessed with this idea, that I should be productive and I should be doing something and I want to be prolific and I want to be moving. I want that momentum. I just have this desire to take up for myself in a certain way where I let myself relax and it doesn't have to mean anything about who I am. And that's definitely a lesson that has been hard won in my life previously, and that I'm learning again now, you know, as I'm going into this quiet and reflective period. It's giving myself a break, and it's recognizing that I need longer to relax between tasks. So, you know, if I have a client call, I usually have half an hour to an hour between client calls, depending. And during that half an hour or hour, I would want to have done something. So I want to put out a social media post, or I want to reply to some people on WhatsApp, or I want to go for a little walk and get something from the shop or whatever. I have found in definitely the last couple of months, if not longer, that I just need to sit there between client calls. Just sit, maybe meditate a bit, just feel my body, do a body scan meditation, just breathe, just basically relax. Sorry about the sound of the drills and stuff outside, darlings. I've tried to film this so many times, really hoping that the drilling would stop, but it's not going to stop. So hopefully it's not too loud on the camera. So yeah, that's something really awesome for my self-love journey, is basically just recognizing, oh, you know what? My words are not coming out as smoothly as usual. I'm having to think more about what I say before I say it than usual. I'm definitely more introspective. I definitely am sort of leaning more backwards into myself and not wanting to talk and not wanting to teach, but rather wanting to listen and learn a lot more. So the ratio is definitely the other way, you know, big time. And so I've had to really stop pushing myself and pressuring myself to be the version of me that I'm used to. I'm not that version of me right now, and it's okay. It's okay. There are definitely some very strong and deep reasons why this has got to be the case. Am I connected to those reasons fully yet? No, I'm not, but that's okay as well. You know, everything will become clear. Everything will come to transparency. Everything will definitely make sense at some point. And just because it doesn't make sense now doesn't mean it's wrong. The 12 months that's passed between last Self-Love September and this Self-Love September have been 12 of the most difficult months in my adult life in relation to self-love. I have had the most ridiculous amount of challenges in the self-love department in the last 12 months. Just before last Self-Love September, I came home from my lockdown in Amsterdam. Adjusting to life back in the UK and then being on lockdown in the UK was really difficult for me. I was going through a lot when I came back from Amsterdam. Actually, before I left for Amsterdam, I was already dipping into a depressive episode. And I've talked about my depression a lot on my channel. If you search the word depression in the search bar on my main channel page, you will see quite a few different videos come up on that subject. I'm very honest and open about my journey with depression. I've had depression for the longest time, I think since I was a child. So, you know, I was already in a depressive episode when I left for Amsterdam. And certainly there was, you know, I was sort of on that interesting, uncomfortable and sad merry-go-round. And when I came back from Amsterdam late June, early July, I think it was, I delivered myself almost immediately back into the hands of a very specific, intense, complicated, painful and damaging emotional connection with somebody. And I can only say that it was completely against my better judgment, but it was with my whole heart. Has anyone experienced something like that? It's so odd when something is completely against your judgment, but it is with your whole heart, with all of your feeling and your deep emotion. And it feels, it feels like something that you cannot navigate around, and you can't go over, you can't go under, you can't somehow avoid it. You have to go through it. Your heart is insistent and won't have it any other way, but you already kind of know the outcome and you're not looking forward to the outcome, the eventual outcome, you know? So I've come back to the UK this time last year, or just before this time last year. I'm already going through depression and everything that entails. I am finishing my book. I'm right at the tail end of my book, Rebel Witch. I feel like I'm surrounded constantly by all of this like economic hardship and death and illness and fear and confusion and arguments and anger. Lots of, at that point, arguments and anger about who was believing what and who was going to have the vaccine and who wasn't, and whatnot. So lots of these different kinds of conversations and all of that. everything I was dealing with there. On top of that, the emotional intensity of this connection with this person, and we're trying to figure out what is going on there and how we feel about that, and surprise ourselves by the dynamic there, and revisiting that dynamic and how it had changed and how it had not changed. So I had all of this stuff going on, and it sort of threaded through. It threaded through to the end of 2020, and it moved into 2021. I, like a lot of people, feel that 2021 in many ways has been a continuation of the 2020 energy. And I think we all can agree that we wanted to get rid of that trash fire energy and move into something new. And it wasn't really quite how it, that way for a lot of people, myself included. I wish I could be more articulate in this video, but I just cannot. I just have to let myself do whatever I'm doing, say whatever I'm saying. So with all of that being said, it's been incredibly difficult for me to make self-love into a daily practice. Sometimes it's easier than at other times in my life, but I'm so grateful for the last 12 months. I've learned so much about what actually are the most difficult sticking points for me with self-love, what comes up over and over again that I find difficult, that I try to under address, or I try to kind of like circumvent, and that I really need to put my focus and my attention on. There's been a lot of gifts for me in that sense in the last 12 months, even if they've been very hard won, hard received. I've gone with peppermint, but I put two in my teapot, 2 peppermint bags in my teapot. Note to myself for next time, you do not need 2 in this tiny little teapot. Ooh, it's a little bit too pepperminty, if that's possible. For me, a depressive episode already comes along with a platter, a veritable fucking smorgasbord of self-love challenges, my darlings. And I choose to rise to those challenges every single time. I look at those challenges and I see them as something to really deliver to myself and show myself that I can work with those challenges, I can learn from them, and I can eventually be grateful for them, and I can see the medicine that they brought into my life. For a very long time before my depressive episode that started at the end of 2019 and went through into kind of like the COVID time and whatnot, up until that point, for a long time, like 10 years, my depressive episodes have not been very long. They feel like they're going on forever and they are agonizing. But if I actually look at them laid out on a yearly calendar, they're not very long. I would say that my depressions usually last between a week and 6 weeks. And the ordinary amount of time for a depressive episode to last for me would be about a month. And so one of the things that it's been really difficult for me to accept and come to terms with is that I have now been depressed for almost 2 years on and off. Has it stopped me from doing my job? No. Has it stopped me from having friendships with people? No. Has it stopped me from being able to express my feelings, to create art, to do my spiritual practice? To an extent, on and off, yes, but overall, no. I have managed to muddle along, push on to Moscow, as it were. I have like kept going with it, but I've been depressed. I've been depressed since I would say maybe like October, November of 2019 is when I remember having what I call the black wave, the feeling of that black tidal wave coming over me, that big, dark, deep, scary, overwhelming wave. And yeah, I definitely think it was prolonged by, being plunged into a massive global pandemic. I definitely think it was prolonged by the difficulties we were all going through as a collective, and the big existential, overwhelming islands you end up sitting on as a result of all of that, And don't forget, I was talking a lot, with my clients about their experiences too. And that is the privilege of my life. That is what I really want to do most with my life. And it's a huge thing that I'm grateful for every day. But whereas I think some people will put themselves into work to get away from what is happening, when you're going through something collective and global, obviously pretty much every client you speak to has their perspective on it and wants to talk to you about it, as is their right, So I was talking about it a lot more than the average bear. Don't forget that as well. And for anybody out there who's like a helper, healer, card slinger, therapist, anything like that, you'll know what I mean, that you're not only having your very heavy, overwhelming thoughts and feelings about what's going on, but you're also, helping people to process theirs and talking about what things are like from their perspective and the difficulties that they've been through. And in some cases, the people that they have lost, or the jobs that they have lost, the sense of security that they lost, a relationship that's been on the altar of sacrifice, as they've been going through this time. So that's a lot. That is a lot. And again, it's just looking at that and being very gentle with myself and saying, you know what, it's been a long, hard road, and you've done so much for yourself that you can say is loving and kind and compassionate. You have put yourself in the vibration of compassion as much as possible. I'm really pleased with myself for that. But one thing it's been really difficult to do is just to be honest with people about what I've been going through. And that's something that for me is just a huge ongoing self-love lesson that I keep needing to learn in different ways. Answering honestly when people ask if I'm okay, or when people ask how am I, what have I been going through, what is my perspective on everything. Answering honestly is a self-loving act. And that's something that I have repeatedly recognized over the last 12 months. Is it difficult for me sometimes? Definitely. And I think there are various different reasons for that. But being honest about the fact that I'm going through really difficult things, and being honest about the fact that I've had maybe a long string of very difficult days in a row, is hard, but worth it. And I've been learning to do that much more. I've also recognized, and this is something so big for me, I've recognized that I can't expect people to know that I need help and to come to my aid and listen to me and be there for me if I at no point actually say that I need help. If I'm downplaying my own difficulties, if I'm not being honest about the fact that I have had a string of difficult days in a row, then it's going to be really difficult for somebody to read my fucking mind and know what's on my heart and know what's going on inside of me, and actually give me the degree of support or space or assistance that I might actually really need. So that has been something I've worked on a lot more in the last 12 months. And I've had that sort of deeper opportunity to learn that lesson in a whole new way, in a more intense way, definitely, but in a whole new way. I think I've been telling myself a story, and maybe some of you can relate to this. I think I've been telling myself a story. And it's partly true. That's the problem with the narratives, the stories that we tell ourselves, isn't it? Is they're based on some truth, but they're not entirely true. They've drifted off into the arena of fiction, but they're kind of based on truths to begin with. It is partly true, let's say, that people think of me on the whole as a incredibly exuberant, capable, joyful person who lives life well. And seeks happiness and just basically has a good time and is generally content. And it's true that people often think of me in that way. It's true that is my reputation. It's also true that is very often true. There's no smoke without fire. Like, I really do largely tend to feel like life is going pretty well, and the challenges I have, I can take in hand. And I like to think that I can be very available to people and very helpful to other people when their challenges arise. So there's kernels of truth in all of this. But I think the story I was telling myself is that people are so much attached to that idea of me as somebody who used to have issues but now has everything very together, that they would never think that I need help. They would never think to assist me. They would never think to reach out their hand and actually, see if I really am okay. And they would never accept if I wasn't okay. That's kind of the more fictionalized version of things I was telling myself. What I recognized from looking back at the last 12 months of my life and actually looking at the various different opportunities I've had to be clear about the fact that I'm not all right, is that I downplayed my pain. And I didn't like, or certain parts of my ego didn't like, the fact that I had to admit that I was in pain on a fairly consistent basis, and that my depressive episode that usually would be done and dusted by, the 6 week mark, the 4 to 6 week mark, that depressive episode was, now it's now coming on for 2 years. there was something really difficult for me in admitting that to myself. I didn't want to be a burden to other people. I didn't want to lose that reputation that I had of being happy-go-lucky and basically content and strong and okay and enjoying life, you know. I felt a grieving. There was a grief and a loss that came with having to say, I have been dealing with an ongoing depressive episode of nearly 2 years in length now, and I'm tired. I'm bored and I'm tired. And some of the symptoms that come from having a depressive episode for so long, you know, frustrate me and make me feel a little out of sorts and not like myself. Things, for example, like short-term memory loss, not being able to get my words together to explain what I want to say. You know, things like that, being a very poor at measuring time, executive dysfunction, you know, not being able to figure out what is the priority and what to do next, things like that. Incredibly frustrating, really frustrating. And not being able to find joy in the usual ways that I would find joy, like from food or, you know, that kind of thing. It's just frustrating, you know, it's very ongoing. It's something that I didn't want to admit. It's something I didn't want to see as being a part of myself, you know, as having such a long and incredibly long depressive episode. And, you know, I know that I've been high functioning during this episode for sure. And there have been certain tools and certain strategies that I've locked into to be able to do that, not least my spiritual practice, which has been absolutely life-saving, and has enabled me to keep working and to keep seeing friends and to keep, you know, trying to keep that normality, going to the gym. There's definitely been some disruption with all of these things, but there has never been a dead stop with any of these things. And I did that for myself. I insisted on that for myself because, you know, I don't want the depression to take more than it even, you know, this is what I mean. I can't speak properly. Oh my goddess. Okay. I don't want the depression to take even more, you know, than it has. I want to claim it. I want to claim it. I don't want to be embarrassed by it. I don't want to downplay it. I have recognized the incredible fruit that comes from actually owning it more and talking about it more. One of the most important parts of that for me has been getting support, getting assistance. I might be somebody that needs to explain a little bit more emphatically that I'm not doing well and that I might need the extra support or the extra understanding or the extra time. I might have to explain it a bit more emphatically because usually that's not the case with me, you know. So my friends, my family members, etc., you know, people that I converse with online or whatever, they might not expect that from me because usually it's not the case. Like I said, I've dealt with depression for as long as I can remember, but my depressive episodes, my difficulties, they don't usually last more than, you know, the 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks maximum. But that would be to me like a very long episode where I would be like, come on, I'm waiting for it to finish. You know, they're usually sort of quite contained time wise. So I might have to be a little bit more clear about the fact that like it has really been going on for a while and it is sometimes causing me to need more understanding, more space, more patience, more time away, you know, whatever. But what I've realized is that just being honest about it, owning it, it's important. It's important for the breakdown of mental health stigma, which you guys know I'm all about. But it's also important for me so I can get some real support so people can really understand how difficult it has been for me. And, you know, I have a group of people in my life that I'm so privileged to be able to call friends who have all been there for me because I was bold enough and honest enough to say, no, seriously, I'm not okay. Like, you know, and that I was able to express over the past 12 months when I was having concerns about myself and how I was feeling. So I'm proud of myself. This kind of coming across really smug. I'm proud of myself for putting all the strategies and the tools into place, many of which I've spoken about in previous Self-Love Septembers. I put them into place for myself, but I also reached out. And that is the thing that my ego struggled with. It wasn't me putting the strategies into place that I know exist, that I've read about time after time, that I've used, that have saved my life before. That stuff I see as being a part of who I am. But the other thing, the kind of like breaking down in front of somebody or reaching out to lots of people on WhatsApp and saying, is anybody awake? I kind of need to talk to someone right now. That stuff, or saying to my therapist, do you have an emergency appointment slot? those things are so anathema to what my ego has set up for me. So it's this ego story again. Sorry, I'm not on the verge of crying, darlings. I'm just losing my voice a little bit lately, the last couple of days. Which is ironic because I'm barely talking apart from to my clients and, you know, a little tiny bit to my friends. But even then it's mostly like messaging because I'm just so reflective and feeling so quiet lately, that when I'm not having a social or professional engagement, I am literally just like sitting around quietly by myself, minding my own business, reading Marcus Aurelius. Okay, that's what's been happening in my world. Marcus is my boyfriend now. So I'm losing my voice, I guess Spirit's way of saying like shh, and I'm like, okay, but hang on, I just need to make one video, just hang on. So yeah, that part, I invented a story about how nobody would help me, everybody thinks I'm okay, nobody ever thinks I have any problems. And like, yes, there is a kernel of truth in that, but that's always going to be the narrative if I don't interrupt that narrative and say, I'm not all right, I'd like some assistance, please. And I managed to actually allow myself to do that. And the other story I've set up for myself, and I've known that this has been a story I've told myself through the years, is that I'm the helper, I'm the person that comes along and holds the space, I'm the person you call when I'm Mr. Wolf, all right? I'm who you call when you need to sort out, you know, getting rid of some bodies and like getting your car back on the road. Yeah, that is a big part of my story. That will be a big part of my legacy. I'm happy about that, but that is not who I am. That is not who I am. You know, I'm allowed to not be okay. That is okay for me to be. It's okay to not be okay. And if anybody right now knows that that is a message from Spirit, that they're watching this video right now, and that is Spirit coming through to them through my with my English tones and saying it's okay to not be okay, you're allowed that moment of not being okay too. Take it. Take that if it resonates with you. Run with it. Please, God, do. Because it might be the difference between life and death. It might be the difference between sanity and the other fucking place. I have been a lot more gentle with myself lately, so much more. I have really taken my foot off the gas when it comes to wanting to be productive and wanting momentum and wanting to push myself. I spent all weekend this last weekend just watching things I've already seen from years ago that I pretty much know off by heart or that just mean nothing, but I just enjoyed at the time. Like rewatching the BBC Narnia series. I rewatched Worst Witch and Weird Sister College. I'm just rewatching loads of old stuff that I really liked. I watch a lot of Powerpuff Girls. Have I already seen all the Powerpuff Girls? Yeah, too right I have. Do I own them all on Prime? Yeah, I do. But yeah, I've just been watching loads of like old cartoons and stuff and just relaxing, just napping, eating, watching stuff I've already seen, reading stuff I've already read. You know, I have recognized that one thing I tell myself a lot, and I have told myself my whole way through my 20s and now into my 30s, I've often had this idea that it's a waste of time to watch something you've already seen, read something you've already read, you know, it's a waste of time to listen to albums you've listened to hundreds of times. I guess that's less of a story I tell myself, but I still do tell myself like, oh, you should discover some new music, you should discover some new movies, you should look at some new stuff. Actually, when I'm depressed and I'm vulnerable and I'm feeling a little bit like shaky in the foundations of myself, it's not always, it doesn't always feel super safe for me to imbibe new content. And I would put that out there to you if you're someone who does feel like rereading something or watching something you've seen a million times before just for comfort, but you feel like there's nothing productive about that. There's nothing, you know, there's no momentum in that. And you feel like that's kind of a stagnaty thing to do. I would say maybe you want that because it's familiar, because it's safe, because you know it gives you a dopamine release or like a serotonin release. I don't know which fucking chemical it is, all right? I'm not a scientist, but it gives you a good feeling. You know, maybe go and maybe let yourself do that because it's medicinal, you know. Medicine doesn't always require momentum. Medicine is sometimes about just nesting and chilling and vibing with yourself. I remember when I said in my 10 things I do at my altar video that one of the main things I do at my altar is nothing, absolutely nothing. And a lot of people actually found that to be quite revelatory, and they said they're really glad that I mentioned that I do nothing at my altar because they weren't really giving themselves permission to do nothing at their altar. And so I guess I'm just expanding on that. I'm extending that into other aspects of my life as well. I'm letting myself just sit and do nothing and just watch something that I enjoy that I've seen a million times before, you know. One thing I've realized lately is that discipline, the word discipline, is a very big part of the self-love journey and has been over the last 12 months for me. The discipline to take action without feeling motivated is a massive one. Massive. There is no way that I would have been going to the gym during this period of, you know, lots of low moods and lots of just uncomfortable feelings and crying. No way I would have gone to the gym if I was waiting for the motivation to go. There's no way I would have answered any of my WhatsApp messages to any of my friends if I was waiting for the motivation to do so. There's actually no way I probably would have gone to half my therapy sessions if I was waiting for the motivation, or if I was insisting on having the motivation. I would not have gone to my altar if I needed the motivation to do so. I take myself there a lot when I'm not motivated in the last 12 months, a lot. And I really would strongly suggest that you do the same. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, I've been waiting for the motivation and my altar is covered in fucking dust and I just haven't done any devotionals, any chanting, any ritual, anything, I would suggest maybe thinking about doing something without the motivation, taking the action without the motivation. The medicine is often at the other side of the thing that you're waiting for the impetus to do, you know? One of the other things I've also had a lot of discipline with is breaking fixation and preventing misuse of the imagination. This has happened in loads of different ways for me. The past 12 months have been filled for me with these little opportunities that I've had to stop myself from thinking about the worst case scenario. This is something I talk with my clients about regularly. It's something that we've gone through here on the channel with videos in the past, and the comment sections have been riveting when it comes to this. You know, people misusing the imagination to think of worst case scenarios, to envision all of these horrible things happening, to take yourself inside other people's minds and imagine all the horrible things they must be thinking about you. You know, it's like making everything triple fucking cringe just through misusing your own imagination. You take yourself straight to fucking cringeville. That willingness that I have to reroute my imaginative faculty, take it somewhere else, take it away from that thing that I'm just like feeding myself into, that's been really helpful to me, and it's felt healthy for me. Having the discipline to stop thinking the same thing over and over again, knowing that it's harming me. It's harming me, it's making me sad, it's making me worry, it's making my heart rate rise, it's making me not want to go outside, it's making me not want to message somebody back. Then stop thinking it. Stop giving yourself to it. Recognize it, see the carousel you're on, and jump the fuck off, you know? That's been something that I'm so proud of myself for doing every single time I do it. I mean, you very much win some and you very much lose some. I'm not going to say every single time I've been misusing my imagination. It's been so easy to just like snap out of it and carry on with something else. But I've just been collecting all these tools, all these different things that could help, you know? And just reminding myself as well of tools that were lost to the ether of time and have come back to me in this really significant way. Have you ever found, as you've been moving through life, that you kind of forget about various tools that were really good at one time or another, but you just, through virtue of finding other things and going on into other challenges, you forget, and then you come back, you have this incredible homecoming to this tool that you haven't used in a while, and you're like, oh yeah, there we go. I remember how good this was. I remember how this used to really work. I remember when I first discovered this tool, how revelatory it was and how fucking fizzy it made me. And now I'm getting that champagne all over again. I'm feeling champagne about this tool that I've refound. I've like plucked it in an archaeological dig of myself and been like, oh yeah, that was really good. That used to help, you know? So I'm having a lot of that too, like rediscovering various things that will take me out of a fixated thought or a misuse of the imagination, or just going on a bad one, just being on a bad one and being able to say, okay, I identify that, I see what's happening, and here's something that I know usually manages to take me out of it, put me onto a different frame of mind, you know, just really put me into a different energy. The opposite thing is very much true too, as well as rediscovering lots of tools that I sort of have found along the way and I'm maybe coming back to, and getting very clear about what my strategies are when I'm doing something that's unhelpful to myself, or I've just woken up and I can see that it's going to be a day in which depression is going to feature quite heavily. I've got those tools there, I've got those strategies there. At the same time, I'm also doing this thing that's very interesting in the last few months, where I'm getting very clear about what the areas of self-sabotage are, you know. So in fact, I wrote down earlier, I was doing some journaling, and I wrote, on a quest for change, there are pitfalls, high-risk situations, and acts of self-sabotage. Know them, write them down, be honest when you see them, take responsibility for not bringing them into your life. You know, so yeah, that's basically what I've been doing. I've been recognizing very specifically what the pitfalls are for every challenge that I'm facing. You know, so for every individual challenge that's part of depression, for example, like body dysmorphia, which I'm going to talk about in a separate video this month. You know, that's a difficult one, body dysmorphia. What's another one? I'm struggling with going no contact in a situation, in a relationship where no contact is very much what is necessary for us. With all of these different challenges that I've set for myself, or being consistent with movement, physical movement, because it is good for me. It's good for my mental health. Whenever I don't engage in any significant physical movement, if I lie around like for 3 or 4 days and I do not move other than maybe to go to the loo or just to walk to the local shop and back, my mental health starts to go down the pan. Like that's just something I've recognized within myself. Same way, if I just eat crap food for days on end, my mental health takes a little bit of a nosedive. It's something I've recognized. You know, there is science behind it as well. So with all of these different individual challenges that come up when you're in a depressive episode, or when you just are trying to pull your life up, you're trying to give your life more quality and more consistency, there are going to be areas of self-sabotage for all of those things, you know. So for example, I know that if I do not commit to at least trying to sleep several hours a night most of the week or most of the month, I am going to struggle with being consistent with my physical movement regime. Because that after a while, my body's going to tire itself out. I'm just going to feel lazy, and I'm going to need to nap loads, and I'm not going to want to walk to the gym. I'm not going to want to do the class that I booked or whatever, or I'm conveniently not going to book a class because I'm tired and I don't feel like it. So, you know, I know that I have to make that commitment. I know that's an area of self-sabotage for me. If I'm up at 4 a.m. doing something artistic when I know that I've booked a class for 10:30 a.m., I'm self-sabotaging and I need to go to bed. Again, it comes back to discipline. So it's being aware of the pitfalls, being aware of the situations that could be high risk when it comes to not doing what's best for myself and not being self-loving in the way that's right for me. Obviously, tweak is appropriate for you. Everybody's different. But it's knowing those pitfalls, it's knowing the areas of self-sabotage and being really honest with myself about that. And I've been trying to get better in that regard as well. I know that I've spoken about this previously in my video about living alone and why I live alone, but I'm just going to circle back around to it again in the context of this video where I'm kind of talking about what's been important for me with self-love and stuff like that. I think that for me, this being the longest time that I've been single in many, 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 many moons has been really good for me. I've really enjoyed the self-love potential of the single life. And I'm not planning on changing that anytime soon, for sure. I definitely would say that I've known a few people for whom complete celibacy and total lack of any sexual or romantic attachment has been really important for them to sort of establish as a rule for themselves for a while, and that the potential for them with self-love, you know, what they can learn in terms of self-love and how they can improve that practice has been really great. For me, I'm not necessarily saying that it's complete celibacy, or there's going to be, you know, there's no romantic interest at all, or no sort of interest for intimacy in that sense at all. I don't think I need to, you know, carry on in that vein. I don't think that's a commitment I need to make for myself personally. But certainly I am not looking to be in a relationship anytime soon. You know, not like a committed relationship that has that label attached to it. Not even any ongoing pursuit of this, you know, of somebody. Like, I am completely unattached right now in any conceivable way. I'm not attached in any conceivable way, and it's definitely helped me to forge a very strong attachment with myself. Now, am I saying that my suggestion is that everybody like get divorced or break up from your significant other and go off and like marry yourself in this very full way where you're the only person in your life romantically or whatever? No. But am I saying that I am in a romantic relationship with myself in a way that I don't think it would have been possible to obtain when I was with somebody in that sense? Definitely. I'm in a full-blown romantic relationship with myself, all right? I'm reading myself shaky baby every night in bed. I did used to do that when I had partners, so that there's not much difference there. But I bought myself an engagement ring. That I did do. I'm not going to be able to show it to you right now because I don't wear it all the time, but I wear it very often. I wear it most of the time when I go out. It's like a glitzy, I might as well, there we go. That's my engagement ring for this moment in time. There we go. Just for the rest of it doesn't fit on that finger, but it looks very engagement-y. It's like a, you know, something that you would get out of a little kid's machine. It's like plastic, but it looks glitzy. It's for my 6-year-old princess look, darlings. Yeah, so I bought myself an engagement ring. I am retaking marriage vows to myself. I am very strongly committed to this relationship that I'm having with me. And at the moment, I am polysaturated, as we say in the polyam community, as in there is no more emotional room for anybody romantically or sexually. It's just me, all right? And I'm very romantically and sexually connected to myself. So that's interesting. That's been happening, and that's good. That can only be a good thing. I think I've really taken that in stride. I've decided that it was something that I really needed, and it's something that I could really stand to get behind fully and experience fully and go through the whole spectrum of emotions around that. And it's not all good experiences for sure, because I'm very used to being in at least one very committed romantic relationship. That's been my reality for the longest time. And I don't identify myself as someone who needs to be in a romantic relationship. It's just the way my life has worked out. If I look over the timeline of my life from like my late teens to now in my mid-30s, I can understand why there's always been at least one central romantic relationship. It makes sense, just the way things have gone. And it's not because I couldn't be alone, or I was worried about being alone, or I jumped from relationship to relationship. It was just the way that things worked out for me, that I only ended up having really a maximum of 6 months without being in a relationship. And so, yeah, for me now to be so long without a connection of that type is interesting. I'm learning a lot from the experience. I'm definitely giving myself a lot more gifts, and not just in terms of like buying myself things, of course, but giving myself the gift of time and patience and listening and space holding for myself, and asking myself what I think about things and what I would like to do with my day off, and whether or not I would like to leave an event or carry on at an event, you know. Whenever I'm in a romantic relationship with somebody, I'm like this with friends as well. I think a lot of my friends would safely say this to you. But certainly in a romantic relationship, I'm the kind of partner who will turn to the person they're with and say, are you okay? Are you still enjoying yourself? Do you want to go sit down? Do you want to take a break? Do you want to go home? Like, what do you think? Do you want to go here for lunch? I'm easy. We'll do what you want to do. I'm not somebody that makes a massive amount of demands. When I have a very strong idea of what I want to do, I have that very strong idea, and I'm very infused, and I can usually sell it to the person I'm with. I'm like, oh, you know what we should do? I've got this really great idea, and I'll kind of say what I want to do. But very often I will give way, and I will give ground, and I will ask the other person what they want to do. And I've often been the person to accompany somebody home if they don't want to go home alone or whatever. So yeah, you know, I'm doing that for myself now, which is awesome. I also don't have anybody necessarily to ask if they want to go with me to do something. And that's been something I've enjoyed since the very beginning of single life, is just if I want to go to an event, for example. I mean, a lot of my single life has been blighted by COVID, or just it's been happening while COVID has been happening. So I haven't been going anywhere. But I remember when I very first became single, just before anybody knew what coronavirus was, or anybody like had heard of COVID-19 anyway, I remember booking a couple of things to do with my friends once I got back from Amsterdam, and not having anyone to ask if they wanted to come, or if they, you know, wanted to drive there or get the train there, or should we come back on the Sunday night or whatever. It was just like, I looked at my own schedule and I decided I will go from that time until that time, and I booked a train and I booked the tickets, and that was it, you know. There was something very novel for me about that. There's something very novel for me about not having to necessarily worry about what somebody else would like to do plans-wise, and arranging things as a team with my romantic partner. I'm my romantic partner. It's just this one-woman team, and frankly, it's absolute luxury. And I know there's a lot of people that left comments underneath my video about living alone, who said that they are single and live alone and it's bliss. And I have to say, I quite agree. I quite agree, darlings. I'm definitely going to have like a solo marriage ceremony for myself. I don't know exactly when it's going to be. I have been thinking about vows and things that I'm going to promise to myself, and just have like a special anniversary for myself every year to mark this important marriage to myself. I have actually been just using words of power a lot more in the kind of self-loving affirmations way of things. I've been writing a lot more affirmations recently, and a lot of them are very linked to self-love and connection with my body and loving my body, that kind of thing. I have been sharing some of my affirmations with my patrons over on Patreon, showing some of the pages from my my book of words of power and scripting and affirmations and stuff. And I've been thinking about sharing more my affirmations and words of power and things like that on my channel as well. So instead of introductions to videos, you know, like the usual introduction, you might find that instead I share some of my affirmations with you guys or something, who knows. So we'll see how that goes. I would like to put more of my words into the world. I'm giving myself a lot of time to explore poetry, writing more poetry, and I'm really enjoying that. And I'm just kind of giving myself a lot of long baths as well, and enjoying reading, and, you know, trying to be nice to myself, basically, darlings. Trying to be nice to myself and give myself a break. And I think that's something that we could do with offering to ourselves more. All right, my loves, I'm going to go now. This has been a very higgledy-piggledy video, but nonetheless, there will be some timestamps down below, because I'm sure I haven't made that much of a mess of it that there isn't some kind of rhyme or reason to it. So hopefully something of this will resonate with you, and thank you so much for being here and being a part of it. Please leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think and what's been going on with you for the last 12 months. How have you been approaching self-love? What have the difficulties been for you with it, and where have the triumphs been? Where have you done well? Where are you proud of yourself? Let me know. I really want to know. Okay, so I'm off. And my darlings, you can follow me across all my social media platforms. I'm definitely going to be sharing more there about self-love during the month. And I always like to share there. You know, I share different things on each of my platforms. So come along. I'll leave all of the links down below to everything. If you want to join me on Patreon, there are 3 tiers on Patreon, each of them offering things that will give you more access to me, my messages, and also to the community that we have over there. So please come along to the Patreon tiers, have a look, have a little read through, see if you want to be a member, and come and join the experience there as well. And yeah, I wish you so much love and self-love, darlings. Blessed be.